Done it. You've designed and built your database, it's out in the wild, and it's working. But what happens when things change and you need to adapt? Well, your database isn't frozen in time. So today, we're going to dive into how you can modify your SQL schema on the fly.
And that's really the big question, isn't it? Because project requirements always evolve, business needs shift, and your database has to keep up. The good news is, no, it's absolutely not set in stone. We're about to explore the essential tools for changing its very structure. Okay, first things first, let's talk about being proactive. We can actually build a safety net right into our tables. This helps prevent errors and, keeps our data consistent. And we do this using something called the default constraint.
So check this out. Here's our employee table. We've got all the essential info, but I want you to notice those null values sitting there in the country column. This happens all the time when data gets entered without that one piece of information. And trust me, that can be a real headache down the road.
So how do we fix this for every single new entry from now on? Well, we add a new rule, a constraint, to the table. What this command is basically saying is, hey, database, if anyone adds a new employee and forgets to tell you the country, just go ahead and automatically make it India. Simple as that.
Now, what's really important to see here is that the old data, the stuff with the null values, is completely untouched. We haven't messed with it. But what has changed is the table's underlying rulebook. The table itself is now smarter, and it's ready for any new data we throw at it.
So really, you can think of a default constraint as your data's personal bodyguard. It steps in when new data is being inserted, fills in the blanks, and stops those pesky nulls from getting in. It's all about keeping your data clean and consistent.
All right, let's see this thing in action. Let's say we're adding a new employee, Radha, to the database. But look closely, we're intentionally not telling it what her country is. Before we added our rule, this would have created another one of those problem null values.
And boom, look at that last row for Radha. The database saw that empty spot for country and just popped India right in there for us. We didn't have to do any extra work. No extra code, no errors, just perfectly clean, consistent data.
Okay, so our data is definitely safer now. But what about making it easier to understand? Let's be honest, the column names we use in the back end aren't always great for a final report. So let's crack open what I like to call the Clarity Kit.
And that's where something called an alias comes into play. Think of it like giving your columns a temporary nickname, just for one specific job. So for this one report, we can make ID show up as roll_number and salary show up as earning. It just makes the output so much more descriptive.
And take a look at the result. We get this clean, really easy to read table that's perfect for sharing. But here's the key thing to remember. The actual table back in the database, it's completely unchanged. This is just a temporary mask we put on the output.
So just to be crystal clear, an alias is a temporary nickname. The stage name analogy is perfect here. It's just for that one performance, that one query, and then it's gone. The original column name in the database schema is still there, totally untouched.
But what if a nickname isn't enough? What if you need a full-on legal name change? Well, for that, you need a totally different tool, SP Rename. An alias is temporary, but SP Rename makes a permanent change to the name of a column or a table right in the database schema.
All right, let's head back to our employee table. See that column named City? Let's just say that the business needs have changed, and we've decided Place is just a much clearer name going forward for all queries forever.
And this is the command that makes it happen, SP Rename. It's really straightforward. You just tell it the current name, which is employee.city, and then you give it the new name. This is the official paperwork for your data's legal name change.
And there you have it. The column header is now permanently Place. From this moment on, any query, any application, any report trying to get this data must use the name Place. City just doesn't exist anymore. The schema itself has been altered.
Okay, we've covered safety nets and name changes. But now we're getting into the really big stuff. What if you need to change the very type of data a column can hold? This isn't just redecorating. This is like changing the foundation of a house.
So look at our ID column. Right now, it's an integer, meaning it's set up to only accept plain old numbers. But what if the company rolls out a new ID system, and now IDs look something like EMP 101? Our current setup? Yeah, it would just break. It can't handle letters.
The command for this kind of major surgery is alter column. We're fundamentally changing the container that holds our data. We're literally telling the database, hey, that little box you were using for ID that only holds numbers, we need a different kind of box now, one that can hold a mix of letters and numbers.
I love this way of thinking about it. Renaming a column is like slapping a new sticker on a jar. But altering the data type, that's like throwing out the old cookie jar and bringing in a soup thermos. The very nature of what the container can hold has fundamentally changed.
So the big takeaway from all this should be that you are not stuck with your first design. You have this powerful, really flexible toolkit to adapt your database as your project grows and changes. So let's do a super quick recap of the tools we've just put in our belt.
So here's the whole shebang.
When you need to automate things and keep your data safe, you're going to use the default constraint. To make your reports clearer without making any permanent changes, you'll use an alias. For that permanent official name change, SP rename is your tool. And when you need to make a fundamental structural change to a column, you'll use alter column.
Okay, so we've seen how to make all these powerful changes. But this leads to a much, much bigger question. The real expert question is, just because you can change something, does that mean you should? Every single one of these alterations, especially the permanent ones, can create ripple effects across all your apps and reports that depend on them. So thinking about when not to change your schema is every bit as important as knowing how to do it. And that is a